Friends, we often hear people say, live in the present moment. But why should we live in the present? And what are the specific methods and steps to do so? Very few people can clarify this for you. In today's episode, we'll discuss what it truly means to live in the present and share with you 3 key principles to help you do so. Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. Please don't try to understand today's content with your mind. All of today's content is meant for your inner self to hear. You need to feel with your heart to realize the root of all your suffering. It's because your mind has created a false version of you through thinking. This false self replaces the real you and becomes you, leading to your suffering. Therefore, never try to find yourself within your thoughts, because whatever you find isn't the real you. These false selves created by your thoughts are the opposite of your inherently complete true self. They are fearful and lacking. They desperately need a sense of self and existence, so that they keep tightly binding themselves to your problems. Then they constantly attract you, guide you to analyze, research, and solve these problems. They need you to do this, because only by doing so can these false selves exist. Once you free yourself from these problems, it means they will perish. They cannot exist anymore. That's what they least want to see. Therefore, these false versions of you hope that you're unconsciously, passively, and ignorantly always immersed in the pain and torment of solving problems. This is why the biggest commonality among those with depression and anxiety is that they feel they have serious problems that need solving. Precisely because of this, the Buddha said, all beings suffer. However, once you realize, note, not realize through your mind and cognition, but your inner self suddenly becomes aware that the root cause of your passive suffering is that you've always been living in your thoughts. At this point, congratulations. You can gradually step out of this shadow because you're about to start entering the present moment, living in the now. If you want to free yourself from the negative emotions that cause you pain, break free from the identification with the false selves created by thoughts, and passively suffer, want to see your true nature and attain true freedom, then you must listen carefully to the following content. I will help everyone escape the mind and enter the present from 3 dimensions. First, the first key to entering the present: jump out of the time trap. Once you identify with your thoughts, you've already lost yourself in time, because your thoughts exist on the timeline of the past and future. When you remove time from your thoughts, the thinking stops immediately. All your problems disappear instantly, because pain and troubles only exist within time. Without time, they cannot survive. And the time we need to remove is not the physical time on the clock that we usually refer to, but our psychological time. We must first distinguish between psychological time and clock time, because this is the prerequisite for you to live in the present. So what is clock time? It's the time you use for specific things in life. That's clock time. After these specific things are resolved, we should immediately return to the state of the present. Otherwise, you'll fall into the psychological time created by your mind. Psychological time is when you're either reminiscing and identifying with the past or constantly focusing on the future. A true practitioner usually focuses all their attention on the present, but at the same time, they can consciously use clock time in the present moment. They will never let themselves focus on psychological time. They free themselves from psychological time. This is the most important part of daily practice. But during the process of cultivation, we must be vigilant, because it's easy for us to unconsciously convert clock time into psychological time. For example, if you made a mistake in the past, but now you spend time summarizing and correcting it, you're using clock time to complete a specific task. This task is to summarize past mistakes in a certain matter and then use it to regulate future behavior in similar situations. You see, this is a specific thing. But if you keep reminiscing about your past mistakes mentally and repeatedly engage in self-criticism, self-denial, or feel regret, sadness, resentment, guilt, etc., then at this time, you're turning the mistake into a part of yourself. You've been replaced by the problematic, false self created by your thoughts. You're no longer you. At this time, your clock time has invisibly turned into your psychological time. As long as you're in psychological time, you've lost focus. You've lost the present moment. You're in pain because you don't accept the results that have already happened in the past. Don't accept the gap between reality and your expectations, so you suffer. Similarly, if you set a plan for yourself and follow steps to achieve or complete it, then you're using clock time because you know your goal and you're fully focusing on the actions you're taking in the present moment. This is a specific task under awareness. However, if your attention is on the result, on your expectation of the result, then you're not focusing on the present. You've been replaced by negative emotions like fear, tension, anxiety, worry, pressure, unease, etc. At this time, your clock time has invisibly turned into your psychological time. Once this happens, you've lost the most important function of experiencing the process of life. You won't discover all the beauty and miracles in the process of life. Some people might say, but I'm suffering in the present. Only by relying on hopes and expectations for a better future can I gain strength, happiness, and the courage to live. Wrong. On the contrary, every time you hope for a better future, it reminds you of the gap between your unsatisfactory present and the future you expect. This is precisely the source of your unhappiness. It's actually living in this so-called hope that keeps you in pain. No one has told you the truth. Remember, what can make your future better depends only on the seeds you plant in the present, not on your expectations and hopes for the future. In the present moment, your free will, or your focused mind, that is, the quality of your attention, is the most critical factor affecting your future direction. And what determines the quality of your free will and focus is your ability and degree of dwelling in the present. May I ask, if our meager attention is all used on expectations for the future, how can we possibly focus on the present? How can we plant any good intentions for our future? Therefore, ordinary people, the masses, are all upside down, putting the cart before the horse. It's all self-deception. In the end, they reap what they sow without realizing it. This is called inverted delusion. Now, if you anxiously ask me, if I don't think about the past or the future, then I can't just keep focusing on my breath, on my body, thinking about nothing. Won't I lose control over time? Actually, you're not losing time. What you need to do is to lift your awareness, use clock time on the specific things you need to do. Only then can you truly grasp it. All right, having explained the first key, jumping out of the time trap, let's look at the second key to living in the present. Stop creating problems. As we mentioned earlier, those false selves created by your thoughts will replace the real you and then continuously exaggerate problems, turning them into your own complex personal issues. But in fact, all problems are illusions created by your mind. Once you believe they truly exist, you feel you have issues. And thinking you have issues is actually your biggest problem. A problem means you're mentally dwelling on a certain situation, but not taking any action in the present, and you unconsciously make it a part of yourself. You're completely trapped by these mental illusions, to the point where you lose awareness of your present life. Your mind is filled with countless problems to solve, but you haven't focused your attention on even one thing you can and should do now. When your mind is filled with problems, new things or solutions to problems can't enter your mind at all. Every time you create an additional problem, you create an additional portion of pain. It's actually these problems created in our minds that are polluting our current world. Laozi saw through all this long ago. Therefore, he emphasized non-action. And the serious problems you think you have are actually created by your thoughts. They are illusions in life. Remember, thoughts live in time. If you remove time and live in the present, then these problems naturally no longer exist. Some people might ask, those problems clearly exist. How can I ignore them? Let me give an example. If you're in an emergency, a matter of life and death, you'll realize that the problems you thought you had are no longer problems in an instant, because in true emergencies, your thoughts stop. Think about it. Have you had similar experiences? In emergencies, your mind suddenly stops wandering, right? This is why many people suddenly awaken in the face of death or major disasters and adversities. When you're faced with survival or death, Nothing else is a problem. Remember a truth: the problems you think you have are actually the false selves created by your thoughts, making you unconsciously identify with them as yourself, so they can transfer their problems onto you. Let me put it another way. This is actually the combination of your thought identification and ego. Their offspring is called pain. All this is because these egos, these false selves, want to use these problems to continue existing. That's all. So, just return to the present, because there are no problems in the present. Without problems, there's no attachment. Without attachment, there's no fear. Unless a problem arises in the present that you need to solve now. At this time, your action to solve the problem should come from present awareness, not your mind. Because in the present, there's no linear time. Without time, there's no such thing as thought. Thought exists only in the past and future. In the present, there's only awareness, only wisdom, only self-nature. This is why when masters and enlightened people do things, they rely on present intuition. Ordinary people rely on thinking, on cognition. Because solving problems in the present with awareness is incredibly decisive, clear, and effective. This reaction doesn't come from your past dualistic thinking, but from your intuitive response to the problem in the present. When you reach a certain realm, you'll find that if you act under thoughts limited by time, it's better to do nothing. Returning to the present is more effective. That's why I say after going into debt, you absolutely don't need to act in panic. Instead, you should stop first, calm yourself, jump out of the mind's thinking, do nothing, return to the present, wait for the guidance of awareness to solve the current problem. Only then is it possible to turn things around. Otherwise, you'll only sink deeper. Actually, there's a very simple standard. To easily determine whether you've left the present, you can ask yourself anytime, does what I'm doing now make me feel joyful, relaxed, and at ease? If the answer is no, then your present moment is already controlled by your psychological time. You've left the present, but this doesn't mean you must change what you're doing. What you need to change is just the way you do things. Often, how you do something is more important than what you do. This brings me to the third key to living in the present. Change the way you do things. If you focus more on what you're doing, rather than the results you hope to achieve through it, it means you're making an effort to live in the now. As long as you pay attention to the present moment, all your struggles and unhappiness will disappear. Remember, as long as you act with present awareness, no matter what you do, you'll be filled with peace and joy. Even in the simplest things like eating, sleeping, drinking water. Practice this in everything. Don't focus on results, focus only on the present. This is the most effective way to truly practice. When you're no longer eager to escape the present, the joy of your true self will infuse everything you do. You'll feel presence, tranquility, and happiness. You won't rely on the future for accomplishment and satisfaction, won't be attached to future outcomes. In this way, you've discovered the true essence of life within the illusions of existence. We aim to achieve a state where we respect everything, yet are detached from it all. When we reach this state, we've already moved away from suffering toward joy, and worldly successes have likely already happened naturally. This is called, when you seek it, you cannot obtain it. When you don't seek, it comes to you. Finally, the Buddha once said, all sentient beings possess the wisdom and virtue of the Tathagata, but due to inverted delusional thoughts, they cannot realize it. Star. In fact, perfect wisdom is found in every present moment. Only the present moment is the true nature of life. Only in the present moment is there no suffering, but truly living in the present is very difficult. The three keys I've shared today are actually the best practical methods for self-cultivation to help you live in the now. Let me say one last thing. We allow our thoughts to exist. We see the arising of our thoughts. We use thinking as a tool within clock time to handle specific matters. But we don't identify with thoughts, don't get lost in them. This is the state we aim to achieve. Understand? Well then, thank you very much for staying with me until now. I hope it has touched and inspired you. See you next time.